Hi y'all. So we're running a little bit late. It's been quite busy out here. So I won't be talking too much. Only wanted to tell you that I'm going to be turning in different directions so you can see me better. So let's get started. So I have my water with me. Anytime you need to take a little break, go ahead and do so. So we're going to be starting a little bit with some spinal movements, some postural exercises, and so on, balance, and so on and so forth. Then change over to tango shoes and a little bit more tango drills. Let's go.
In this series of forward folds, try to move the spine as a whole simultaneously and not to break it down in pieces. Feel the whole spine moving from top to bottom. If you can't reach all the way to the floor, hold anywhere along the line of your legs and try not to pulse in the lowest position or not to push your way down too much. Give yourself some time to find the right pace for yourselves. Notice here as you're bending one knee, you might feel a little bit of pain on the other leg that stays extended. Try not to push and pull here and relax the hips. While reaching in the side bend, you'll notice that your hips will react by going to the opposite side. Don't try to stop them. And also your rib cage will turn a little bit. Notice these things and engage into them. Don't make them any bigger. Just engage, tap into them. During these balance exercises, the first thing that we usually do is we tense up and we squeeze in the glutes and we hold our core in tight and so on and so forth. Try not to do any of that. Instead, find your breath and allow the breath to help you keep your axis and keep a nice normalized tempo. So you're feeling relaxed even though you're standing on one leg and moving. The important part here, as we sit low into that squat and then we come up and transfer that weight over, is the transfer itself. It doesn't matter how low you sit or how far down you reach when you're doing that yoga style single leg deadlift. That's a terrible description, I guess, but maybe in yoga I think they call it airplane if I'm not mistaken. But the important part is to go from the 2 feet, come on up, transfer over, and go into that pose, lifting one leg up, and then managing that balance as you're moving the arms around. The things to notice here that are important for us to take in tango is not only the balance and the weight transfer, but also how our arms move without affecting the rib cage, and if they are affecting the rib cage, what is the effect that they are creating, and what would that mean for our embrace. So try to notice all those things while you're doing that exercise. So notice when I turned, so for you guys to see better, my alignment there was a little bit off. So even when we are, you will see, if you go back, you will see that my knees are falling too far over my toes. They're dropping a little bit slightly down. The angle is a little bit different compared to the repetitions before it. So they're sliding a little bit too much forward, and they're not keeping their level. So that angle is quite important. So try when you're going, especially when you are wearing heels, not to let your knees fall in the wrong angle compared to your hips and your ankles, because that is actually going to throw you off balance or challenge your legs too much, quite a lot. There are a couple of things I want you to notice in this part of the exercise. We're not only doing it because it's going to strengthen your legs, and followers, if you're wearing heels, strengthening the legs is the most important part. But notice how my upper body turns gently towards that knee as that knee is coming up. Not at the end, but it is during that passing of the free leg from the center as it's coming up, that the body position is starting to change. And then see, as I'm pulsing, there is a gentle, very, very subtle twist towards the front leg. You can see when I'm facing the camera how my chest is turning from the front knee to the free knee. Front knee and the free knee. Front and the free knee. Have that in mind when you're going to be doing your forward steps. You can see it there. This movement is a lot bigger though from your walk, but it's still there. Tap into it in this exercise and it will help you immensely in your walk. One forward, one back voleo, and a gancho. You will notice here that I'm starting slowly and then I'm going to be picking up the speed. I encourage you to do that as well, even if you know that you can do it faster. Then the other important part is notice how I'm managing the the boleos, the combo anyway, that I'm doing, the 2 boleos and the gancho. Notice that my body is still moving, supporting the movement. It's not that I'm doing such a big movement. It's not a very big exaggerated movement, but it is moving to support the movement of the legs and give me a little bit more making me able to move with a little more flexibility and to reach that leg just a little bit higher.
All right, have some water if you need it. I'm trying to avoid the bugs here. Oh Lord. Okay. One quick word. You can do any of these exercises anytime you join in, or anytime you see this video. Choose any of the exercises. Do it for a couple of minutes. It will help you immensely. Change into your tango shoes if you're following along, or whenever you get to see the video. That's what I'm gonna do right now. Oh, door. It's warm out here. So, here we go. No, here you don't really have to. You can do it with flats if you want, or into your practice shoes. Last time walking on this thing was a little bit of a challenge. Let's see how this is gonna go today. Here we go.
Notice as I'm walking, the movement in my hips. Notice also that the chest is changing every time addressing the leg that is at the front or going to the front. It's very subtle, but it is happening. Notice also that I am landing most of the times on a bent knee, or a soft knee, better said. Have in mind that I have overextended knees, so what you're seeing in the video are my knees actually bent. So I encourage you to work in the same direction. It is not a good thing to have your knees locked. Be aware of that, and you'll see that your knee problems while on heels will become a lot better if you manage the alignment between your knee, your hip, and your ankle. So you'll see that my hips are going a little bit very gently forward and back. And notice also that they're also very gently going back and up and down. Notice here how my upper body is participating gently into those taps, supporting the movement of my legs, and how my knees are staying together for better balance, but they're not crossing each other. So you want to keep your knees together, but not necessarily to cross them. Sometimes we over exaggerate that part. Sometimes, not all the times. Now, so from the side view, it is easier for you to see that what I was talking about the knees. So the angle between your knee and your hip should be such so you won't be working too hard or feeling that you're falling too far forward or too far back when you are standing on that heel. Now, the body sometimes, of course, plays a role, and sometimes it is far too forward, or the arch of our back, of our lumbar spine, is too deep. So we're trying to get our hips too far back. This is especially for the followers. We're trying to get our hips too far back, and that does not work to our benefit. It challenges our balance at the same time. It can cause a lot of trouble. So try to define the posture, following the movement, the natural movement of the spine, instead of trying to push and pull different parts of it in the position that you think you should be having. That's quite important. You should be feeling throughout the whole step that your spine you have communication between the end of the spine and the top of the spine. So if there is a disconnection and you're not really sure of what's happening above or below a certain point, then there's probably some tension building at that spot. You would need to address it. Notice also how my upper body is supporting the action of the legs during the side step and during the circles. My hips are also gently moving up and down without me sinking into the hip, though. It's a normal movement of your hips, and it is far better. Your steps will feel far better if you tap into it instead of trying to completely block it. Notice here that I'm starting with small traveling ochos, giving myself the opportunity to transition smoothly from forward and back steps into the ochos. So I'm not going straight for an ocho that's a lot bigger. This way, you'll see where your flexibility ends in terms of muscle. So what I mean to say is that here my core is not really working that much. I can actually manage that rotation in the spine. So it shouldn't feel like a lot of strain for the muscle. On the contrary, it should feel like something you can easily do. And that is how we manage that transition. We're going from a linear step, we're adding some pivots, and then we're going to be making it bigger. Notice here the position of the legs, the movement of the hips. And as promised, we're getting into bigger ochos. Now this spot that I chose is probably not the best spot. You don't want something that is that low. I got used to it, but it is better if you choose something that's a little bit higher. Notice how my spine changes as I do my pivot, and then I take my step. Try to establish for yourselves a tempo like you see I'm doing. Maybe the first couple of ochos were a little bit slower for me to get into the pace. Find a comfortable pace, spending the same amount of time in transferring the weight and doing the pivot. So sometimes we tend to go faster, either when we're taking the step or when we're pivoting. Try to avoid that. Spend the same amount of time in both parts. And here you see, you can have a better view of my spine when I'm doing the traveling ochos back. As you can see, the movement is not very big, even though I'm waving my hands to those bugs. And if you remember from that exercise that we did in the beginning with bringing the knee all the way up to the chest, that spinal movement that you saw there, it is very similar, if you remember it, very similar to that of traveling ochos. As a rotation, we're talking, of course, which is proof that your body can do it without using too much muscle. It does it almost automatically. See? Compare this position to when I was doing the lunge and the knee. Very close. And that is because your spine adjusts to support you when you're doing a march, or even more when you are running. It rotates. So use that first exercise to get into the to understand how your spine moves, so it can actually help you for your ochos.
Oh, I hope that was fun. I know I enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it as well. The video will be staying up there forever, probably. So, grab any part of it anytime you like. I'm probably going to be doing it sometime next week, maybe a different time, every different day. Maybe we'll see. We'll put out the event invitation. What I do want you to have in mind, two things. One is, if you don't want to do the warm-up that I did, have in mind that I put that together for two reasons. One, to get my body to start moving. Number two, though, are things that are not going to just warm up my body or help me work out. They're things that have some similar elements in fitness and in tango. So if you don't want to do this warm-up, you can do anything else that you like, that you prefer, but just try to have in mind that you want a combination of the two. So you want to find exercises that will help you work out and work on your tango at the same time. So you're doing two things at the same time, and you're going to be progressing in both of them faster. Then the second thing is, some of you, if you saw the video last week, you would see like I was getting stuck and my heels were getting stuck on the deck. I was like, oh dear, frustration. Why was I wearing heels again? Not because I'm stupid, or not too stupid at least, or just because, well, I'm a follower and I have to wear heels. That's not the reason. The reason is that I want to challenge myself. When you have an unstable surface, or when you have a surface that's, make your shoes stick, or there are lines at the deck, and my heels drop in and what have you, that's a challenge. It makes your brain work in a different way. It makes your body work in a different way. It makes you see the trouble that you might have in tango with your balance, your alignment, or whatever, are accentuated. So because of the challenge. So try not to avoid the challenge. Maybe it's not this kind of challenge. Maybe it's a different kind of challenge that you want to put yourself through. So go for it. Don't try to avoid the challenge. Try to learn from the challenge. And you'll see that after dancing on this deck, after practicing on this deck, when I'm going to be dancing in the milonga, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be feeling a lot better in my heels. So do something similar. It doesn't have to be this. It could be something else. I'm sure you'll find your thing.